Hello there, my name is Kate Summers. I am the literacy lead and year six teacher at GLASLLWCH Primary School. And Catherine has asked me to share with you some of the developments that we've made with spelling and spelling strategies at GLASLLWCH Primary School over the last year, kind of year and a half. A little bit of information about our spelling, I suppose, at GLASLLWCH. We use two different schemes for our spelling teaching across the school. We use Twinkle Phonics for our reception year one and year two learners. We were using Jolly Phonics for years and years and years, and but we had a teacher move to reception a few years ago who wanted to trial a new phonics scheme that had slightly more up to date and possibly engaging resources for the children. So we've been trialing Twinkle Phonics since then, and it's been going fine. And once our learners are off the phonics scheme, we use the Spelling Shed spelling resources, which are great in that it comes with all of the teaching materials. It's grouped in kind of year groups-ish, but obviously you can dip in and out of different year groups, as well as some online games that the children quite like playing. You can earn so many kind of tokens, I suppose, and personalize your own little character and things, which the children enjoy doing. We do daily phonics in reception year one and year two. And from year three onwards, we have weekly spelling sessions on a Friday. We also have weekly spellings that go home for children to work on across the week. These are rehearsed during the week in school and also at home. And then in progression step three, we still do weekly spelling tests. I know there's some discussion about spelling tests and how useful they are, but we still do weekly spelling tests in year four, year five, and year six. And we use the single word spelling test as our summative assessment. This year, we've done it at the beginning of the year, so in September, and then we will do our end of year single word spelling test in the next few weeks to track any progress there. On our LLC action plan for this year, we have had a spelling target, which has been to further improve the consistent spelling strategies and resources for teaching and learning spelling across the school, which we're hoping will result in an increase in spelling attainment for nearly all of our pupils. And as I said, we'll see how that goes with our single word spelling test at the end of the year. I think it was in the last academic year, I attended this PL run by Catherine. It was teaching spelling in primary school, which was a really brilliant piece of online PL that was useful for many reasons. One, I think it gave a really good bit of background information about how spelling works, the different ways English words are spelled, and how we can help children to learn them with different strategies. It had some really handy links and resourcing, including the EAS spelling activity bank that we found really useful this year within class and for home learning activities to help our children learn their spelling. So it was a really worthwhile piece of PL to go on, which was really useful. Once I had attended that, I fed back the same information to our whole staff in a staff PL session, including why spelling is so important, what are the spelling knowledge and skills that are necessary for success in our learners, and then how might we support our pupils to develop their knowledge and skills. We've got some very, very experienced teachers in school, and we had some newer teachers. So this was, useful PL for lots of different reasons, as I said, but for those newer teachers who maybe didn't have a lot of training in spelling and spelling teaching, it was a nice kind of basic for them to build on. It was a nice refresh for those that had maybe kind of been doing the same things over and over again with spelling. So it was great. So we had a whole staff PL then led by me based on Catherine's brilliant PL that I'd attended, as I said, through her online session. After that, I went away then and tried to think of the best way of making sure the information that was really thorough in the professional learning slides was easily accessible. And I really like a kind of a one sheet bit of information really, if possible, because lots of people don't have the time to scroll through Google Drive and open up loads of different links. So I developed this sheet here that you can see on the screen, which is our Teaching Spelling at GLASLLWCH document. It's a two-sided A4 sheet if people had printed it out and put it in their folders, or it's just kind of two document pages otherwise. I try, as I said, to make things as accessible as possible because the Google Drive has got so many things on it. So at the top of my sheet, there's the link there to our phonics or our spelling Google Drive folder, which has got lots of resources. It's got our kind of spelling schemes on there. It's got games. It's got professional literature for people to dip in and dip out of. So it's easily accessible there. There's also a link to some really useful professional learning reading, which I'll come to in the end, but it was just a really easily accessible article which had information on the strategies that Catherine had gone through in her professional learning, but it was quite an easy extra read for people. And the phonemes website that Catherine had signposted us to, which is again is quite useful. It's just got all of the phonemes, English phonemes on it, which is useful for people who are trying to teach the phonics and the phonemes. There's a why section on there as well. We always try to come back to the why are we doing things to make sure that staff buy into things. You know, they can see the purpose, they can see the benefit of all of these things to make sure that it's a priority for them. So this came again from Catherine's professional learning. So why is teaching spelling really important? Reduces cognitive load. It's the foundation for all literacy skills. It also helps with reading and writing, obviously, and comprehension skills, and it helps with confidence and competence with children's literacy. And then we've got the different strategies that Catherine had highlighted. So we've got our phonological strategy. So I put information about what that actually means for people. And then underneath the type of activity that you might do to help with those strategies. Some of these are taken from our Spelling Shed scheme and the activities on there. So for the phonological strategies there, we've got our syllable breaks or our phoneme mapping. We've got our graphological strategy, so the letter patterns that go with the phonemes and an example of an activity you could do there. We've got our morphological strategy, so our segmenting into morphemes and an example there from Catherine's spelling resources. Our orthographical strategies and our etymology that we tend to dip into more in progression step 3, and some of the Spelling Shed weekly resources have that involved in those as well, which has been really useful. The other side of the sheet then here is our how are we going to make sure that we're doing all of those things? How are we going to make sure our why is present with making sure it's reducing cognitive load, helping with overall literacy skills, and how are we going to make sure that all of these different strategies are being utilised by children and taught by staff? So this is a breakdown of what we do at GLASLLWCH with our spelling. So we have our spelling lessons. That's an expectation in every year group, or phonics lessons if your children are doing phonics. So we've got information there for staff about what they should be doing. So weekly spelling lessons focusing on a sound or a spelling pattern. The lesson should include the teaching of the sound or the spelling pattern, so it's some actual teaching element to it, and different activities for the children to complete there, whether that's individual tasks or group tasks or getting big bits of paper out or whatever's appropriate or that staff have planned. A variety of different interactive pedagogy should be used. So there's lots of different spelling games and spelling strategies that have come from the spelling resources. And then some kind of evidence, ideally, that spelling has taken place, stuck in the guided reading book tends to be for our progression step 3 learners. It might be in the literacy books or the phonics books if they're in those classes there. And on the side then, again, resources linked really clearly for staff to click on to get to the information they need for the spelling lessons. There's an expectation then that some spelling is sent home for home learning. So there's weekly spellings to learn, focusing on their spelling or their phonics pattern. These are sent home on our home learning slides on Seesaw. And as I said earlier, the Spelling Shed scheme has games that can be played by the children. They need to be set so children can access the correct spellings for the week on that. And they also get a spelling activity sheet to be sent home as well. Spelling Shed do those, or they have different phonics ones. There needs to be time to practice throughout the week. So there should be provision throughout the week for children to be able to practice either as a whole group or individually. That might happen as an early morning activity when children are coming in. It might be in those classes that do guided reading carousel, so the junior classes. And year 2 start to do that there's a station for practicing spelling there. And there should be a variety of different activities that they're able to use to practice. And again, in the resources, there's a link there for staff to easily access the activity bank so they can easily find something that would be appropriate. I've also got information on there about the marking of spellings, either within spelling lessons or just in literacy or any writing tasks in different AOLEs across the week. Spelling errors should be identified in work, so we've decided kind of a maximum of 3 per piece. Any more than that, it can be a bit demoralizing, so we pick up 3 different spellings per piece. The specific error we underline in the work. So rather than the whole word that is incorrect, we underline the bit of the word that is incorrect. I tell the children in my class, it's really unusual and unlikely that someone has spelled every single letter incorrectly or in the wrong order. It's usually just a section of the word that's wrong. So we underline the bit that is wrong to highlight actually where the error is, and the rest of your spelling you've got right, well done. And then we put an SP in the margin on the line that this incorrect spelling is in, so children can see, oh, I've got an SP on that line, and find the underlined bit on that line. And then the expectation is children will correct those spellings at the end of the piece of work. For progression step 3, so years 4, 5 and 6, children begin to learn and then obviously become more confident at finding the correct spelling themselves using dictionaries. So the expectation is they will correct their own spellings. Lower down, staff will write the correct spelling, and then children will repeat it 3 times next to it. Also, there's an expectation that within the learning environment, there will be some support for spellings. So there should be in each class a display that has got the spelling sounds that have been covered so far. So children can make reference to that when they're working. If they've forgotten, maybe they've got a visual to help them. And it might also have some commonly misspelled high frequency words or topic words that will be useful to the children, that you've noticed a bit of a pattern. Also in the resources there, we're expecting kind of dictionaries to be available, thesauruses to be available. Children have got mini dictionaries. If they ask for a spelling while they're working, they've got little mini books, and the teacher can write the correct spelling in there, so they can make reference to that at a future date, so they don't have to keep asking for the spellings again and again. So this is for staff as a kind of expectation for our spelling and what that should look like. But I also developed a slide that goes on our home learning slides weekly to support with spelling at home and to help families support their children with their weekly spelling. So this is a simplified version of the different strategies that came from Catherine's PL. So while parents or family members are helping children with their spellings, they can kind of ask these questions to their children, and again it gives them a bit of a simplified sentence about what that actually means and some of the activities that they might see being sent home, or they might be able to kind of get their children to do at home. So we've got what sounds can you hear in the word, so they could try breaking up the words into phonemes or syllables. What letters represent the sounds that I can hear, so let's try writing down the sounds I can hear with the correct letters. Can I break up my words into smaller words because smaller words might be easier to spell and it'll make up a bigger word? Or can I picture what my word looks like? So writing the words lots of times in lots of different ways can help somebody memorize what that word should look like. So this goes home with their weekly home learning, of which one of the activities is spelling, to support at home, to keep that homeschool link strong and the strategies consistent across home and school. So this year, because we've had spelling on our AOLE action plan, we've done some monitoring. We've looked at kind of marking, we've looked at kind of children's understanding of things. But one of the questions they were asked was, what strategies do you use for learning new spellings? As that was part of our target. We wanted to have an increase in the spelling strategies and have consistent spelling strategies. So I spoke to learners in year 2, year 4 and year 6, and these are some of the things that they all said, which I was pleased with because I think it reflected the professional learning that I'd passed on to staff. And I could see then that that professional learning had been passed on to the children, because all of these things here are things that came through that professional learning, or they might be from kind of the basics to what helps with spelling. So rather than the activities, it might have been the kind of theory behind it. And I could see that staff had been kind of drip feeding that into the children as well as using resources from the spelling bank and resources from kind of the spelling shed resources that we use. So some of the things they said were what strategies do you use for learning new spellings? We write it down lots and lots to remember. We sort words into sounds or groups of spellings, like they all end with the same sounds. One of the younger year groups said there's also a mini story in phonics, and we have to listen to the sounds and put our hands up if we can hear it, so making sure they can hear the sounds before they begin to write them down. We break down words into syllables, and they said we clap. It helps us with the word. It's easier to spell a syllable at a time. Someone said that Mrs. Lane, who's our year 4 teacher, says that doing joined up handwriting helps. So one of the graphological strategies is there's some information about if you join your phonemes together, it can help to kind of with the spelling. So joining up phonemes and doing your joined up handwriting can help with spelling. We use a pyramid. It's like a staircase. You spell a letter at a time, which has come from the EAS spelling bank. You can use phonemes, the sounds of the letters. It helps you know the sounds. It helps if you know the sounds and the letters that make that sound. We've played the dice game and wrote the spellings out multiple times. When we have our spelling home learning, we have phoneme breaks and syllable maps on them with something from one of our learners, so they're familiar with what those strategies are and what that terminology means. And we've used different rainbow colours, which is fun, they've said. So I was pleased with that. I could see that there was a variety of different strategies taking place, a variety of different activities that were taking place. Children were generally really positive about it and quite enthusiastic about the activities that they did, and that it was varied, which was brilliant. We haven't done our final single word spelling test to see an increase in spelling across the year, but that will be coming and we're hopeful about that. This is the bit of professional reading that I'd linked at the top of my teaching spelling at GLASLLWCH document for staff, which is a really useful read. It's an article called Power Up Spelling by a lady called Kelly Ashley, who's got a spelling book, I believe. But I just thought that it was this was a useful quote because it just backs up all of the different spelling strategies that had been passed on in Catherine's PL and that staff at GLASLLWCH have been trialling. It kind of supports that. She's saying that these are the kind of things that work. So she says in her article, in conclusion, being a good speller is about understanding how words work and how they're connected in our language. Spelling programs should provide opportunities for learners to actively make sound, visual, written and meaning connections, strengthening their conceptual spelling knowledge. So if the 5 different spelling strategies, including maybe the etymology as they get older and they understand where spellings come from and what different parts of the word mean for their kind of meaning section there, if they work through all of those, they're hitting all of the vital ways that help us to learn to spell. and hopefully increase their spelling ability and their confidence with it, which will lead into more confident literacy learners, more competent kind of literary individuals as they get older and older and older, and they are asked to do more things, you know. So the PL we found really useful. It's been really beneficial at GLASLLWCH, and we've been really pleased with it and are seeing positive improvements, positive attitudes, and couldn't recommend it enough. Thanks very much.